kNOwBOX Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production, and social media. Don't forget, say no to the box. Dile no a la caja. 고정관념 미란 상자에서 벗어나세요.
Welcome back to Dance Behind the Screen podcast. This is your host, Marthea. In season 6, our theme is dance and technology. Our goal this season has been to talk about how dance can coexist in a world of screens, social media, and interactive and immersive environments. This season, we have had an incredible lineup of guests. In today's show, I invited my teammates and co-hosts from season 1 through 4, Azaria Hogans and Raina Mondragon, back on the mic to talk about our thoughts on dance and technology, talk a little bit about the themes from season 6, and what we think might happen next. Welcome back on the mic.
Hey, friends. Long time no talk. It's good to be back. I'm trying to get into the groove of podcasting. Everybody went and had babies, and Marthea is the one who powered through on the podcast mic. So
yeah, big shout out.
You've been holding down the fort, Marthea, holding down
for sure. I'm so glad to have y'all back on the show. I thought we could start off maybe by me sharing some of the themes that I noticed throughout the season and see if there's any topics that you all want to dive a little bit deeper into, and then any questions you might have for me. I made a list here, and some of the themes are gender and race disparity in dance in the tech space, a lot about AI, artificial intelligence, NFTs, interdisciplinary, immersive, and interactive dance, the digital arts, and, of course, our favorite dance film.
Okay. Just because this came to the top of my head, I don't know if we can put a clip of this in later on, but earlier today, my husband sent me a link, and it's ChatGPT 4.0 something. And it's essentially a person having a conversation with the AI, and the AI is responding in real time, turns on the camera and says, "Do I look like I'm interview ready?" And she is joking, "You'll make an impression, but maybe not the one that you want to make." And he puts this fishing hat on, this bucket hat, and he's like, "Should I wear this?" And she's, "I don't know if that's professional." I'm paraphrasing, but it is wild. It is wild out here. Technology is moving so fast. I'm trying to be optimistic and excited about these things, but I will say that video was terrifying for me.
I have to add to that. I definitely think AI in some ways can be terrifying. In other ways, I think if we're able to learn how to use it efficiently and supportively without taking advantage of its accessibility, I think we can do great things for it. But to be honest with you, when ChatGPT came up, my husband's dad was all about it. And I had just had Sophia, and I spent a lot of time with him. And he would say, "Hey, Raina, what do you have in your fridge?" And would put everything in there, and it comes up with a recipe.
Yes.
And I was so against it. I remember I'd be like, "I'm never going to use it. I'm never going to use it."
I think that's a brilliant way to use it.
That is totally brilliant. I think I had a tough day one day, and I downloaded the application on my phone, and I used it, and I was like, "This is bizarre. This is amazing."
It is amazing. Great tool. A lot of the conversations we had on this season revolving around AI were similar to our conversations about social media, right? It's a tool. It's how you use it, things like that. We had a lot of really exciting conversations on how AI is influencing art making and art sharing, which that really excites me. But one topic that we didn't really get to dig in too much is the AI's influence in education and in the classroom. And since you both are professors and dance educators, I'd love to hear, how are you navigating that? Are students using ChatGPT, AI technologies to submit papers? How are you flagging that? I think that's something that I'm really curious about. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners are like, what do we do?
I'd love to speak on this because I'm really big on this. Very transparently in my classes, one of the things that I say, I'm like, if you use AI or ChatGPT, whatever application you choose to use, just know there's applications out there that are also detecting AI work. So what's really great is I don't think they're quite well developed yet because there's problems that come up. A lot of students use Grammarly, for instance, an application where, and I think many people know how to use Grammarly, but what's tricky about this is that an AI detector detects by the data that you place into another application. So if I take my paper and I put it into Grammarly and it detects all the things, I fix it, I submit it, the teacher takes that paper, puts it on the AI detector, it's going to probably appear that it's 90% developed by AI when it truly isn't. It's just, it was placed in Grammarly. That's a thing. So it does get really tricky.
That's so scary.
It is.
As a student too.
Yeah, I had a student and I brought them into my office and I was just like, hey, I love this student, by the way, but I was like, hey, did you use AI or ChatGPT? And they were like, no. And I was like, you can be completely honest with me. I'll let you rewrite this paper. Like, I have no problem with that. I just need you to come clean if this is something you did. And they were like, no, absolutely not. I would never do that. And I showed him the percentage that it showed on the AI detector. And I said, okay, fine. I believe you. I'm going to take your word over what this is showing me. And later they came into my office and they were like, hey, I used Grammarly. Do you think that could have happened? And I was like, absolutely. Yeah. So while there's like all of these great detectors out there, they're not quite well developed to detect what is actually being completely developed by AI or ChatGPT, for instance.
Raina, do you know some of the platforms that you're using to put students' papers through to detect AI?
I usually Google it, and there's one application that I always go to that I feel is the most reliable, and I can source that and share with you to share with everybody else, Martha.
Yeah, we can link that out.
Yeah.
I just think that might be a helpful resource.
Yeah.
Azaria, what are your thoughts on AI in the classroom?
I've been really thankful that my teaching rotation right now, I haven't had one of my main theory courses in a while. So I've been able to avoid this as ChatGPT has been exploding, because most of the writing assignments that I have for any of my technique courses are reflection based, and you can't have ChatGPT tell you how you feel about your progress and things like that.
Yeah, but people do. Have you?
Yeah, but it does, Azaria.
Yeah.
I want to tell you that.
Yes.
It does.
So have you found people like using that?
I feel like that would be more work. Like
but it's not. And I'm going to tell you why.
I feel like it's what I'm asking is so specific to their personal, what is happening within their body.
AI is so smart though.
Ugh, y'all don't freak me out.
No, let me tell you, Azaria. Let me tell you. Okay. All it takes, and the reason we know this is because I've been using a little bit of ChatGPT every once in a while sprinkled in. Just test.
That's good, because then you're going to know what it's capable of. Meanwhile, I'm over here avoiding it like the plague, getting my stories secondhand.
Yeah. No, if you are able to formulate the question perfect enough, it's going to give you the response that you're looking for. So for instance, I can say, please write a response that speaks to, I feel that I'm working really great on my pliés through turnout. I'm really engaging on my hips and that. ChatGPT will come back and say, oh, of course, here you go, and comes out with paragraphs or pages of whatever you need. Because you can be as specific of, can you come up with a paragraph? Can you come up with a page or 2 pages? And it will. It is absolutely bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for giving me this heads up as I go into teaching some theory courses in the fall for the first time in this era of extreme ChatGPT use.
I know it's so exciting to have these tools to make our lives easier, but it's just so scary because we don't know like the limits of the tool.
We don't have any perimeters set up. That's the thing. Like it's moving so fast and we don't have any perimeters or any culture around it. And plagiarism was an issue before things were writing it out for you, just like copying paragraphs. So I know that's going to be a thing that's in use. And I know there's people who are working on like how to integrate that into teaching. And yeah, I need to get on that at some point. But as of right now, I'm just holding on to the old ways. I'm going to have everybody just have in-class discussions. We're going to need 5-hour classes so that everybody can just talk about their papers instead of write it in person.
I was telling a student the other day, I was like, we're done with typewriting. We're going to you're going to write with a pen or a pencil. And you're going to do pages like that. And that's how you're going to submit. And they looked at me and they're like, no. And I'm like, then how am I going to keep you all accountable for what you're doing? I did have a thing. So while we're talking about ChatGPT and it's heavy on students and how they're utilizing it, I did ask ChatGPT something. I asked it to formulate some questions about education and AI. And one of them that stood out to me is relying heavily on AI for educational assessment and grading and how that presents several potential risks. So if there's any faculty out there that are using AI to grade their student papers, with that, I don't have a judgment for it. I understand that faculty are overwhelmed with the amount of papers that you have to grade, but there's like a responsibility. And some of the things that it talks about is you have to be careful about bias and fairness issues.
Yeah, that feels just as bad as plagiarizing to me. So you're going to have them do this thing, but then you don't even know what they said, or you're just going to go based off of what artificial intelligence says is good. Maybe grammar wise, yeah, you can do that. But content, I feel like that's the purpose of specialization, and not that the computers can't be specialized, but they're not human. You had some great guests line up for this season, and I'm really curious about what one of your favorite moments was from this particular season, because I cannot wait to hear.
That's such a great question. I really enjoyed all the conversations, and like you mentioned earlier, I think we all had kids, and I think it's totally changed our priorities and just how we're showing up in the world. But one thing that's been so important to me is having conversations with the amazing guests on our show. And I feel like it's such a cool way to stay informed of what's going on in so many different parts of the world. It would be hard for me to pick just one, but it was really special to reconnect. We had several repeat guests this season. So I really loved getting to talk again with Andrew Chapman from the Mobile Dance Film Association. It was so nice to just have that circle back moment. And when we last had talked to Andrew, he was doing the festival out of 92nd Street and Y, and now has their own organization outside of that, which is really cool just to see like organizational development. And we had a really interesting conversation about like social media and pop culture dances. And so I really enjoyed that. And of course, we had Matt Kent from Pilabolus back on again this season. And he's been on the podcast a few times. So it's just really great to see all the work that Pilabolus is doing. And they were featured really heavily in a new book. So we got to talk with him and Rob, the author, about the company. And it just felt like one of those like full circle seasons. Of course, meeting new guests, but also we had guests on the show who have been longtime friends and collaborators. Like Raina and I work with Joel Levis for Mixed Emotus, and he finally got to come on this season because we're talking about dance and technology. So it was just, a full circle kind of season, and getting to talk with new people and having people on the show who we haven't had on yet. I don't know. I guess that kind of answers it.
Yeah, that's really exciting. We love Pilabolus. We love Matt. We love all those people that you listed. And it's really nice to see the content that's focused around technology. And I'm really curious as to like where everybody is coming from on that perspective.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It's like technology is such a big umbrella, right? And so it was hard to figure out who were the guests that we want to have on to talk about dance and technology. And so I feel like we did a great job in kind of tackling different avenues of people working with technology. Like a new guest we had on is Carrie Ann Shimsham, and their work is really focused on the blockchain space and creating NFTs. And so that was really interesting and very different than having someone on, Sarah Tran, who's focused on dance films, or Bart Weiss, who's been on our jury panel for the kNOwBOX Dance Film Festival. And then we had guests who are working in the more interactive and immersive environments, like Alexander Whitley and Jean-Marc Matos. And so it's just cool to see like how big the umbrella of dance and tech is. But then also another like common theme between all of them was this idea and importance of collaboration and who are the people that you're working with? Because at the end of the day, that's how the art happens, right?
I wanted to ask something about collaboration and how every season there's something about collaboration. Every season somebody speaks to the idea of collaboration. So was there something new that you learned about it?
That's a great question. I think when working with dance and technology, what was really emphasized in all these conversations that I had is the importance of, one, having collaborators. Because oftentimes when you're working in the tech space, maybe you're coming in the dancer role or the choreographer role or the dance educator role, but you didn't go to school or you didn't learn to code necessarily or work with these said technologies. I think to preface that, I think a lot of our conversations in previous seasons have really focused on dance and film. And I think because now creating, as we all know, like we all have our phones, it's really easy to make dance films and become a filmmaker and a film editor because of our phones and the easy access and affordability to editing, to even just holding up your phone and recording a video. You're not having to buy an expensive camera and things like that, like we've talked about. But when working with dance and technology, it's not just about creating a dance film necessarily, right? These are people who might be creating immersive and interactive environments. So they might be working with other technological tools that need a specific skill set to work with those tools. And so in a lot of our conversations, particularly with people like Joel or Alexander or Jean-Marc, who are creating those types of installations and interactive environments, they really leaned on their collaborators who are the technicians that they were working with. And they talked a lot about different strategies to create the idea and create the concept. And it seems like what works really well for a lot of our guests is they have this concept together and then they go their separate ways for a little bit, and each person develops some type of material, and then they come back together and they test it out and puzzle it out, and then it continues to evolve. So I think that's like the big difference that I noticed in terms of working with collaborators is really having that trust, that respect for people who have maybe a different craft than you. And then you're coming together to create something that you might not be able to create on your own.
You are listening to kNOwBOX Dance.
I think that brings up a lot of interesting points too. I know we talk about accessibility with phones, which that could be like a yes or no. It's accessible for most people, but not everybody, and especially like high quality. But there's so many things that dance is beginning to have this dialogue with technology, but it does still feel out of reach for even like in the academy. I know our dance concert this year was focused on dancing technology, which was fun, but also funny because I know the amount of technology that is out there that can interplay with dance that I don't even have access to within the academy or the collaborators to do these kind of things. And I feel like dancers wear so many hats as it is. It's like, how many more certifications do I need to get? Or like, how do I find these people? Or how do I find the software in a way that we can really interplay? Like, how do we get the motion capture for the average person? Or how do we play with NFT creation for the average person so that they can figure out how to monetize their art? So I do think that there's this wonderful like blossoming that's happening. But for me, it does feel like there's still like a bridge of accessibility or collaboration, like you said, Reina. Like, how do we continue to build those pieces so that they can come together for more people?
Yeah. And I think that those are two different things. I think access to like the NFT blockchain space, if you have internet, you have access, right? And that's one thing we talk about in our episode with Carrie and Shimsham, which I love, is I think that the digital space and creating art that lives in the digital space is extremely accessible. And the work that they're doing is really important work. However, like when in my conversation with Alexander Whitley, I think they also he sees this missing link, right? To have access to the tools needed to create the work like you're talking about. And so he's actually developing this really cool platform. But I think you're totally right. It's a missing space. And my kind of personal goal for this season of the podcast was really just to curate a list of questions and about dance and technology, so that maybe as we program out our next season or planning our workshops around the film festival and things like that, we can maybe help shape some possible avenues for solutions or host people that are doing the work already, and we can highlight those and bring that information to our audiences too.
It makes me curious about education, obviously, because I'm a teacher. Is dance film something, based on your podcast this year, was dance film still a heavy topic? Or do you think that dance film is becoming not less than, because I think it's going to continue existing for a long time, but do you feel like the focus has gone away from dance film a little bit by artists and it's going into a different realm?
Like post-pandemic.
Yeah. I think based on the conversations I've had, I don't know if it's necessarily about like the technology or the type of art making, but what I've noticed is the real desire to be in community with people. And I don't know if it's just because I've been feeling isolated, so I'm picking up on that more in my conversations from people, like leading the witness. But I feel like that's been a real through line. I think as tools emerge and different ways to create art, that's going to continue to happen and evolve. And I think people will stay interested, or like they'll shift, it'll ebb and flow. But I really think that the importance is on community, and how are you fostering community, facilitating community, staying in community with people, whether that's through physical live events, whether it's your actual art making process and the kinds of art you're making. There's definitely, it's hard to say because that's like the focus of the season is dance and technology. And my personal interest is creating interactive art, but that definitely seems like a very like important avenue that artists are interested in experiencing, which I think is just as humans, and this is my opinion, with such like a technology focused life, like for the jobs we do, our communication through phones, I think people are craving experiences where they can get outside of the screen, get off the TV, get out of their phone and see people and do things in spaces with other people doing things. So I think that's what my opinion is and what I've noticed, but that I don't have any like finite data to back that up.
I think anything from the boom of the pandemic will probably feel a little bit different, but I think probably pre-pandemic, my best guess is that there's a lot more of that making happening, but maybe not as much as it was in 2020 when people had no other means. So I think personally that it is alive and well, but maybe not as primary as it was when we had no other means of kind of getting together in that community that Martha was talking about. Yeah, it's really interesting to ponder those things.
Yeah, it makes me question, or makes me consider the way I'm going to be leading my dance and technology class in the fall. Just how much collaboration is there within the students, and then also how much collaboration can be within other schools within the university, right? Like how are we collaborating with visual arts or music, and essentially a lot of that has so much technology, because I do think that more and more, we're going to be learning how to collaborate with more artists that are not necessarily dancers, obviously, right? In order to support where dance wants to continue moving forward to.
Yeah, I do think that there's this desire for dance to be interdisciplinary is something that I'm noticing. And it reminds me of this conversation we had like in graduate school about like the naming of classes, like modern dance, or is it contemporary dance? Or because it might not necessarily be modern dance, right? Unless you are certified in certain specific techniques. Whereas contemporary dance is more open, and it feels to me like this is like another level of that. And now we have interdisciplinary dance where we're working with so many different tools or collaborators or mediums, which is interesting to me. I don't know. I don't know if everything needs to be named and framed necessarily. I think we're in a state of exploration as like dances learning to coexist in this world of digital arts. And so it's hard to say like, why does everything need to be boxed in? I think we can continue to just explore and create, and
we love labels. Yeah. We love to categorize. I know.
We do.
We say no to the box here though.
Yeah, we try.
We try our best. But I think that's funny that you say that, because when we look back on times or eras that are referred to as modern and they're so not modern now, that's going to be essentially what this is. We're talking about this as being the technology age and interdisciplinary. And then our children will look back and laugh at the fact that we
like, what? You didn't have it in your eyes? Like,
yeah, it's going to be like our version of dial-up internet when we laugh, when we hear that AOL dial-up tone, you know,
right.
We thought we had it so good back then. That's exactly what it's going to be. They're going to be like, they're NFTs and old school ChatGPT that's not even embodied in like a organism that can dance itself.
They're going to be like, we don't do that anymore. What are you talking about?
I love getting to have you all back on the mic. It's been such a treat for me to have this conversation together when we're not FaceTiming with babies crying in the background, and get to talk about something that we're all really passionate about, because that's how kNOwBOX Dance started, as this idea of a digital dance company, because we don't all live in the same space. And we are missing, of course, our co-host YeaJean, who is on maternity leave still. So there'll be a day we'll all be back on the mic together. But do you all have anything you want to leave us with before we wrap?
I would just say, awesome job, Marthea. I am so excited for season 6. And hopefully if people are listening to this first, they will go back and check out those other episodes.
Ditto. Good job, Marthea. And the other thing I want to leave people with is learn how to responsibly use AI if you choose to use AI. And remember that it's not essentially your voice at times. It's a little bit of your voice and a little bit of something else. So really determine when you want to be heard. And if it's what you want, if you want to be heard, then maybe just choose Grammarly to check your grammar, and that's it.
Thank you both. It's been such a pleasure. And I'm so proud of all the work you both are doing. Raising kids and being in academia and being a part of kNOwBOX is no easy feat. We're so lucky to have you on the team, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for each of you and for our next season of the podcast. Thank y'all.
Yay! Bye.
Bye.
Dance Behind the Screen podcast is produced by kNOwBOX Dance, an art service organization that creates, collaborates, and discusses art with artists and the public. Dance Behind the Screen podcast is co-hosted by Azaria Hogans, Raina Mondragon, Marthea Nygaard, and YeaJean Choi, with sound design by Daniel Rosas.
Thanks for taking your time to tune into Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at kNOwBOX Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.